Beautiful.
Far away, I'll put me on so we can do the editing. Lovely. So I'm sitting here with Duncan Andrews, businessman who owns some of Australia's finest golf courses, and we're going to find out how that came about. But firstly, Duncan, I'd like to find out your golfing history. When did golf become a part of your life?
When I was a kid, my parents had a place down at Peterborough, a little tiny village on the coast, and there was one of those classic little 9-hole courses, and I used to go out when I was, say, 10 or 11 and hit golf balls. I was left-handed but played with right-handed clubs, all that sort of thing, and eventually one thing led to another. Started playing, and it dawned on me somewhere, maybe when I was about 15, 16, golf's a pretty good sport in a sense. I can play this for the rest of my life. And you can't play footy, tennis, cricket for the rest of your life. And also dawned on me that even with the handicapping system, golf is totally unique. That I now at a more advanced age can still play with an 18-year-old competitively in theory but you can't do that at tennis, you can't do that in any sport I think you can name. And that is one of the beauties of golf.
So you've carried on playing throughout your life.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Handicap at the moment, everyone wants to know. 12.
Mm-hmm.
It's respectable.
Well, not really. But I suppose I played for 40 or 50 years at around 5, 6 or 7, literally. And the lowest I ever got down to was 3.
Right.
But that was for about 3 minutes.
Yeah. And you a member anywhere at the moment?
Yes, I'm a member at Metropolitan and at Flinders, which is a seaside course where we have a
beautiful
beach
track.
house. Yeah.
Yeah. And during that whole time, even going back to your youth, did the thought of ever owning a golf club?
No, of course it didn't. That never crossed my mind. But I would admit for many, many years I used to occasionally, if you're out in the country and you're driving along and you'd see this piece of land and you'd say, golly, that'd make a good golf hole. But no more than that. And it all came about by chance through, I had a business that I sold out to Standard & Poor's of New York in 1990. It was a great business, but it went so well that I really did have to sell it out because it was now beyond my ability to manage it. And so at about the age of 40, I was left with, I'd sold out, and what was I going to do? And I understood. I really did think about I thought about my life. I remember sort of lying in bed for about 3 days trying to tick off what I understood. This is at 40, and I sort of understand money, and I understood golf, and then I had this list of things, as long as your arm, that I didn't understand. I didn't understand geology, I didn't understand engineering, I didn't understand chemistry, literature, da-da-da. The only things I felt I really had any idea about was money, and I don't mean that in a coarse sense, but I understood how markets work. And I felt I had an understanding about golf. And that was that. And then by sheer chance, 2 years later, my solicitor rang me and said, I've got a client who wants to sell this golf company. And And it made all the stuff that goes on golf courses, putting cups and flag poles and bunker rakes, all the bits and pieces. I sort of looked at this and it seemed a good little business. And anyway, with another guy, we bought it. He worked in it, and I sort of watched as an investor, an interested investor, and that was fine for about a year. And this company never had bad debts because all it dealt with was golf courses. As a rule, they don't go broke. Certainly in Australia, they didn't. Yeah. And out of the blue, we got a bad debt. We didn't even realise we had one. We had a bad debt for $300 from a golf course I'd never heard of, which was down on the Mornington Peninsula this thing was called, I don't even remember, Limestone Valley, that was its name. But it wasn't a golf course. What had happened was a butcher in the early 1990s had decided, got conned by someone into building a golf course. He had no idea about golf, but he built it in the most beautiful sandy country called the Cups Country on the Mornington Peninsula. And I remember ringing up the liquidator or whoever it was for this golf course. So, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to auction it. Are you going to auction a golf course? This in 1993. And he said, yeah. Which intrigued me, and then I dismissed it. But by sheer chance, a couple of weeks later, my wife and I were driving in the Mornington Peninsula. We went past, there's this bloody big auction board for sale, a golf course. And we drove in and had a look, and it just reminded me of everything I'd ever seen in Scotland or Ireland. This rolling sand dunes, da-da-da. So I actually got interested, and I thought, geez, you could make a good golf course here. But while the type of courses everywhere in Scotland and Ireland, they were not around Australia. This sort of links course didn't exist. It's hard to believe. Rolling country with no trees. Every golf course had tree-lined fairways. Anyway, cut a long story short, I went to the auction, and basically I was the only one bidding. And it was sold by the bank, and so I bought it. And then I started with, now what do I do? I've bought this golf course. So there we go. I'm into golf not by accident, but by more than I sort of ever imagined. It all happened very quickly. And then the issue became, so I tried to employ a few architects to tell me what they thought about this, that and the other. And one thing led to another, and I employed a fellow called Tony Cashmore to redesign it. Yeah, a local guy. And our ambition, sitting around the kitchen table, talking to him, was, could we possibly get this in the top 50 in Australia? That was, that was the dream.
So there was a deliberate plan to say...
Well, we had to somehow get people to go along. If you're no good, they're not going to go. If we get in the top 50, it'll be reasonable. And then for probably 2 years, I had an absolute ball with Tony and the other guys as we built this golf course. It was so much fun. The arguments, the debates, should the par 3 go there or over there, and da-da-da. Have we got too many dog legs left and too many dog legs right? Da-da. It was just sheer pleasure designing this thing, because they talk about golf course architecture, but golf course architecture is probably, in my sense, a bit of a misnomer, because architecture, in the sense of building a building, is being minutely accurate, that engineering's got to be right, and what you specify is precisely what you specify. In golf course architecture or design, it's really more artwork. You start with an idea and you blend it as you go along, and where you roll the turf over here or there varies, and where the bunker might be drawn in this spot but ends up being in that spot when you're on the ground. Anyway, as I say, that was great fun. But we opened this thing, and I was sort of terrified. Remember, there were no golf courses in 1995 with no trees in Australia. None.
No.
And it took off like a house on fire. It really did. People loved it. All of a sudden, here we're Scotland and Ireland in Melbourne. And so it took off like a house on fire. It's probably right, it did. And
I was part of a social group back then.
Oh, really?
And we played it twice a year. So we did all the courses on the peninsula.
Well, you'd know what I mean.
So, yes, knew all the courses, knew Portsea and Sorrento.
But they had tea tree everywhere.
Tea tree everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get to this place and there's just a barren, basically.
But it was beautiful.
Oh.
So then I remember with the council one day, one of the councillors came up to see the golf course, what we were doing, and we stood on a sand dune, and I pointed across this sea of sand dunes, and he said, I said to him one day, in theory, maybe in 100 years, this will be wall-to-wall golf courses, because this land is just perfect for it, and what we've proved is people actually love it. And little did I know, what the dunes did, it spawned Moonal Links, where there's 36 holes down the road. It spawned the National, where there's 50, the National Golf Club, where there's 54 holes. It spawned St Andrews, and there's others. And so it just sort of started the thing rolling. So that was the Dunes, and via Tony Cashmore, the architect, probably 4 or 5 years later, he said he had a client over in Barwon Heads that had some lovely land that they wanted to build a golf course and a housing development. Now I must say the Dunes was pure golf. There was no housing, no intention of having housing. It was just a golf course. Anyway, I met these guys, talked to them, and for 6 months we sort of debated on and off. Anyway, we went out to lunch one day and we agreed the principles of what we'd do. And it was Ian and Philip McNaughton, 2 brothers, and myself, and we went 50-50 and on their farm to develop it and create either 27 or 36 holes plus 150 housing lots at now what's called 13th Beach, which is just out of Barwon Heads. And we did that. We set it up. Everyone was pretty dubious, but we sold all the 150 housing lots quick smart. We had a lot of clever people, supposedly clever people, that come up to us, and we'd have a block of land for sale for 230,000. They'd say, well, we'll give you 210. We never argued. We said, done. Our idea was just get it going. And we built 36 holes at 13th Beach there. I mean, it's now the home of Victorian Open. It goes like a rocket. Philip, Ian and I are still involved with them. And certainly the partnership with Philip and Ian has been the best partnership I've ever had in my life. While we're still involved at 13th Beach, we own supermarkets together and stuff like that. I mean, we've had a great relationship, and all came out of a golf course. And some of the funny things that happen with it when you're building it. And then where did that go? That went, that's 13th Beach, and then that was enough. I was going to build another golf course. And there's a young fellow, when I say young, he's about 40, Darius Oliver, who writes golf. I'd say golf
Planet?
Golf Planet. He has Golf Planet and coffee table books and Top 100. Darius has been around the world countless times. I think he boasts that he's played 1,500 golf courses, and I reckon he remembers every single hole of every course he's ever played. He's just got a fabulous memory for golf. And Darius kept saying to me, I've been at this land I found on King Island. You ought to come and have a look at it. And Darius, I'm over it. I don't need to build a golf course. And he badgered me. Well, badgered's a bit strong, but he kept ringing me and saying, you're the only guy that'll do this. You've got to come down and have a look at it. Anyway, I was conned in the most classic way. Not conned, but we went down in a helicopter and we landed on what's now the 18th fairway.
On the beach?
On the beach, and it was a beautiful summer's day. There was no wind. It was just, and my jaw dropped. I could not believe how perfect this was for a decent golf course. And there was everything right about it. In the big picture stuff, we had the only decent sized building within about 10 kilometres of us was Australia's tallest lighthouse, which sits right on the edge of the property. We had this beach, which was effectively a private beach. We had it all faced north in its own way, and if you know anything about Australia, very few beaches face north. You could just see where the clubhouse would be. You could see where the 18th hole ought to be. There was a big deep valley nearby where you could put a maintenance shed. So you could see this thing. And I then went down again with another fellow, I won't name him, and we were talking about it. I thought, gee, this is bad, and I rang him up. Well, I suppose I lay in bed for probably a week. I kept thinking, if ever you're going to build a golf course that'll be in the top 100 in the world, this was the piece of dirt to do it on, because if you don't get in the top 100 on this piece of land, you've failed miserably. And then I sort of think to myself, would I like to have a go at it? And of course, after 2 weeks, this thing gnawed at me, and I thinking, Jesus, if I don't do this, I'll die. I'll spend the rest of my life wondering.
Where does that hesitation come from? You've had success with the dunes.
Oh, that's easy.
13th beach.
Oh, that was easy. The hesitation here was, you don't need to be Einstein to work out that Cape Wickham is seriously remote. It's not. It's easy to get to in one sense, but the only way you can get to King Island, where Cape Wickham is by plane, a 40-minute flight from Melbourne. It's the only way. So it's not the same as hopping in your car. And when I say remote, it's 30 miles from the nearest town. And it to get Patrick, you could spend a lot of money, but if you build a monument to nothing if no one ever plays it. So it had to make it attractive. It clearly, in my eyes, had to be we had to get in the top 100 in the world. Would it get there? Yes, if we were half clever. What sort of things do we have to do? Well, number one, we had to employ a US-based architect, golf course architect, because all those rankings are essentially run out of New York. They're New York-centric. And if you had some Australians as your architect, you're going to make your job hard. It would be harder for them to emotionally even begin to believe it might be any good. These New York raters, the rate golf courses. So you needed a new American golf course architect. The land was remote, and King Island isn't the greatest economy in the world. And in this land, there was this strip of, I'll say loosely, 50 to 100 metres wide, all around this land, which was called Coastal Reserve, which was owned by the Crown, or the government. And while people can walk on it, they can't build on it or anything like that. So I agreed to buy the land subject to approaching the Tasmanian government saying, the Coastal Reserve, can we use it for golf? Now, you can't find many places where that's done. And say in Victoria or New South Wales, there are very few parts of the coast, which if this table was the coast, where people are allowed to build right to the, if you like, the high tide mark.
Yep.
I've got a couple of spots in the Mornington Peninsula, very few spots seriously anywhere. Now, if you could get this coastal reserve to build golf on land like this, then you've probably got the product. You've got the lighthouse that is sublime in its beauty. No superlative is enough for the lighthouse. It's massive. It sits there. It's been there 160 years, pure white. If you could get the Crown Reserve land, and if you could get the New York architect, the right sort of architect, then you're away. You've got a chance.
Well, if you're building up to the shore, you're moving in Pebble Beach.
What's how rare it is?
Turnberry.
Turnberry's not. I wouldn't. Yeah, okay. There's one hole.
Yeah.
Basically 2 holes at Turnberry. Yeah, that's the sort of thing. But what we had here, because this coastline wasn't a straight line, it went like that. So it meant you had kilometres of coastline. And if you could get that made the difference. That was pretty obvious. You could do it, but we had to get. Then you have to get the routing right. And we had, again, what fun we had for probably 6 months minimum. Arguments and debates. There would have been 200 golf holes on this land, 200. And there would have been maybe 20 different possible routings of the 18 holes. And it was every time you wanted that, it means you lost that. And we ended up, you have to start somewhere, we ended up debating we agreed where the 18th hole had to be in the first hole. Once you did that, then the rest began to flow. But a lot of fun doing that. Even toward the very end, we still had options when we were building, designing the course. There was a section we could have gone up a valley and then down a valley for some views, or to be going. Anyway. 2 years later, it was 2013, I think I bought it, and in November 2015 we opened it. Now what shocked me, it shocked everyone, and me included, was that Golf Digest USA, almost out of left field, rated this course 24 in the world.
Mm.
Now, in fairness, to put some perspective on that, there's circa 35,000 golf courses in the world. And that's why, I mean, if you get in the top 100, you're in elite. You're seriously an elite company. But if you get in the top 25, you've gone past elite. You're in now the, I don't know what it is. But anyway, it's
stratospheric.
Yeah. I mean, it's a serious shock. But that then convinces third parties that, hey, this must be worth a visit. Because you're up with the Turnberries and Pebble Beaches and so on. And, I mean, there'd be a lot of people that say this is much better than Pebble Beach. One guy wrote a great quote, which I could read to you. Probably we've had countless, and we get them every day, accolades. But this guy wrote this wonderful thing, which I could read to you if you want, but it's one of the great...
Please.
No, I'm only on the spot. I'm thinking, I'll just put him. This fellow called Shane Verner from Sydney, who I've never met Shane, but I want to thank him. When Andre Agassi and Steffi Graf had a kid, I thought to myself, that kid's going to be one magnificent tennis player. Your course looks like Royal Dornoch and Pebble Beach got married and had a kid, a baby. And that baby grew up to be prettier than Pebble and a better golf course than Dornoch. When you play Dornoch, you play with imagination, using the hard ground, bouncing the ball off the cushion, using your brain, being creative, having fun. When you play Pebble, you walk around awestruck at the natural beauty. But unlike Pebble, there are no weak holes. I can't wait to go back. I mean, it sums it up.
Yeah.
It sums it up. And it's not, I didn't design it as such. So, I mean, the guys that did it, they take the credit. I remember one night we were down at King Island, and there was Mike DeVries, the US architect, and Darius Oliver and myself, and we got into this argument on the routing, and Mike was insistent. He kept saying we can't play too many holes on the water, one after another, because they'll get sensory overload. And Mike, give me a break. You can't have too much water and sensory overload. He said you will, and we've got to go into the water, then go away from the water, then come back to the water, into the water. This is when we were debating.
You got to give them a break.
Yeah, and well, Darius and I the next day were just wandering through the grass, and we got to what is now the 18th tee, and Darius said something like, "Oh, it's a pretty good drive." And I said, "Darius, what are you talking about? It's a pretty good drive." He said, "What do you mean?" "That's one of the best drives in the world to golf anywhere." He said, "Well, I suppose it is." But we've been walking around the coast for quite a few hours. And eventually, and that's where Mike won me over. Yeah, sensory overload was an issue, so we couldn't. You didn't want 9 holes in a row. You wanted 3 and then a break. So we ended up with, I think it's 8 running parallel to the ocean, which there's not a course in the world with 8 holes. Then you've got another 2 greens that are on the ocean, and you've got another 2 or 3 tees that are on the ocean, so you're down on the ocean. And when I mean on the ocean, I don't mean you're looking at it. I mean that, 15 feet away or 20 feet away, the Southern Ocean is coming in on the rocks. And that's what makes it really unique and different. And it has its bad weather days, but it has its great days.
Digest said straight away 24th, and that they'll go back in 2 years and have another look. Do you have any dreams or aspirations as to...
No, I don't really. Because what's going to happen? I mean, there is a course being built in Scotland right now called Ardfin, funnily enough by another Australian. And that's going to be a very good, exotic golf course that people will want to visit. And golf's changed dramatically in the 20 years since I got involved with the dunes. It's now, from an Australian context, certainly, I think it's probably true in the Western world generally, the big solid golf clubs are okay, but then there's a fringe group below that are now having problems. The they're less exotic. They're nice golf courses, but they're having trouble attracting members because the world has changed. People they either want to be a member of a really good club, as a rule of thumb, or they now want to drive and play golf at one of these golf courses where there's public access. And the dunes, certainly in this country, was the start of it, because one of the sort of mottos I had, I want the public to play at the dunes and it to be the standard of the best private golf courses.
Yeah.
And at that point they weren't. The public golf course in Australia was, to put it mildly, crap. I mean, it was owned usually by a council and it was rubbish. And to provide a course, you could just pay your money and turn up and have a game, and a good golf course. That was the beginning of a big change. And so now the golf courses that are thriving are the good destination golf courses, and the decent private clubs.
Yeah. It's a trend that's happening in Europe, where the golfers are being seen as we want to get them into our region or into our city. And I visited Coxyder, which is in West Flanders in Belgium, and the mayor said, build me a golf course that I can play a tournament on, because he's going up against Royal Ostend, and said, I want something better than that, but I want it as a public, that anyone can come and play. And then months later I was in Spain, up in the north, in La Rioja and Logroño, and the golf course at Logroño is incredible. It is very similar to the dunes in some respects. It's wonderful rolling hills. And the mayor said again, I want a public golf course, but I want it fantastic that you can play a tournament on. Anyone can access. So there is that ongoing trend to build magnificent.
The thing about it too, these these high quality destination courses attract people who've got a wallet, who can afford to travel to them, and they want. Many of them are baby boomers, or the younger kids away for a few days with their friends, and they spend. So your mayor understands that these people come into his district and spend money, and I mean down at King Island, I think you're seeing it day in day out. These people have never seen an American in their life. Now there's Americans every day, there's Europeans and so on. It's just been a total makeover for the island.
And is the rest of the community in King Island benefiting?
Oh, well, the trickle down is massive.
Yeah.
It's the jobs, it's the spending generally at other shops and places, and people are opening up little businesses, and so it's probably more than a trickle down, it's a gush down. And it's terrific, and I don't think King Island would have seen too many foreign visitors from one year to the next. There's Cape Wickham and another new course called Ocean Dunes being built. They're getting more visitors down there, Americans, and certainly most Victorian golf courses get it all, apart from perhaps Royal Melbourne and Kingston Heath.
Is there room for a third to make it a golfing mecca?
Oh, there's room for 50 down there. Just this golf course country, mile after mile, it's just perfect for it. I'd hate to see it overkilled, but that won't happen. But we've got a spot for the most magnificent second 18. Would really round ours off beautifully. There's some other land. It's just perfect. There's plenty of land. There's perfect.
Yeah. So is that on the books?
Probably not for me. I did what I wanted to do. I wanted to build a course, see if I could go in the top 100. That's not meant to sound arrogant. That was just honestly the ambition, and I've got there. Now I've found myself I have to build bedrooms, and I'm going to run a restaurant. And I don't want to. I've never really wanted to I just don't want to run a restaurant. I don't want to run a hotel. That wasn't my aim, so I'm going to sell it. Because there's more work in running the hotel and the restaurant side than there is in the golf course. It's harder. I mean, the golf course is easy compared to them.
Now you've got June 13th, Cape Wickham. Designers, Tony Cashmore, Nick Faldo, Mike de Vries.
Like DeVries, yeah.
DeVries.
Oh, in fairness,
know
Darius
that being
Oliver
Dutch.
did a huge amount there as well.
How do you select who's...
What a good question. Well, look, you can only select on basically what people have done in the past. But if you like, you've got to remember I'm an individual. I'm not a golf club committee. So as an individual, I'm doing this because I want to do it and it's fun. So when I select a golf course architect, I've got to like him.
Yeah.
And I've got to be part of it. I've just got to be. And I remember to and Mike DeVries and Darius wouldn't be offended if I said, one of the world's great golf course architects is a bloke called Bill Corr, who's in with Crenshaw.
Right, yes.
Bill, of course, built many golf courses in the top 100. He sat on my veranda at Flinders at my beach house, and I talked to him for an hour. I thought, this is really nice. I really like this guy. He's a really nice guy, if I'd had Bill Coy, there's no question you'd be in the, because he's so respected. We would have been anywhere. I'm not saying would have been better, but there was no question that would have been like a passport straight into the top whatever. And I said to Bill, after we'd had this talk and we'd had a drink or two, Bill, what would you charge to do this? And he sort of sat back and he mentioned a pretty big number. I go, geez, that's a lot. And he said, well, that's. And then I said to him, well, if I pay that much, Bill, do I get to have a say with you on what you're doing, how you're spending my money? And there was silence. And he sort of went back and he said, no. I said, well, Bill, I find that really impossible as an individual. They just give you carte blanche. It's just not in my nature. I wouldn't want to be involved. It's too important to me. I want to be part of it. And I realised I'd asked him the wrong question. This later.
Yeah.
Because I took a bit too literally and said, well, I just couldn't do that. I couldn't allow you just to have the fun of your life and leave me out. Just all I get is write the checks out. That would have been no fun. And I realised he was, probably in hindsight, he was making a positional stance. Look, I'm the architect, and yeah, if you prove yourself, you can be involved with me and talk to me, and should the tee be there, or should the hole go this way or that way? There wouldn't actually have been a problem, I'm certain in hindsight. But I took him a bit literally and thought, well, and I would hope he actually regrets it because he missed out on the best bit of dirt too. I mean, Darius, who's seen as much land as probably anyone in the world have got, I mean, he still sits there and says that's possibly the best piece of land he's ever seen in the world for a golf course. And anyone that goes down there will, not too many will argue, I don't think. It is better than Pebble, for example.
Now, you mentioned Bill Corr with Ben Crenshaw. They've got 2 courses in the top 25.
Oh, at least I would say.
What have we got? Pacific Dunes and Fry's Head.
He didn't do Pacific Dunes. No. Tom Doak did that one.
Oh, sorry, no, that is Tom Doak. Sorry, Fry's Head.
He did Bandon Trails.
Bandon Trails.
That's a damn good course.
The point I'm getting to here is that there are 7, I believe, courses built this century, currently sitting in the top 25. Mm. Yet if you go back to the end of the 20th century, there were no courses built in the previous 3 decades. Mm. Yet all of a sudden, the top 25 is starting to be dominated by courses built this century. Yeah, and is that a trend? Is that a fashion, or are we getting better at it?
I think the latter's probably right, but I think there is one legitimate question you could ask. These courses, whether it's Pine Valley or Augusta, if you like, or Royal Melbourne, have been around for, call it 100 years loosely. They have proved themselves over time. In fairness, I think you could argue that many of these, the Bandon Dunes and the Cape Wickhams and so on, Cabot Cliffs, haven't really been around long enough. You could argue they should be working their way up, not going plonk in. But I'm not arguing that case. I'm just saying that I understand that argument. Is it different now? You're asking. Yeah, I think it's dawned on people it's not about housing. For the 80s and 90s and 2000, was all about housing and making money out of it, when that was not what good golf courses are about. Good golf courses are about going down, and it's beautiful. There's no... to give you an idea, the dunes, I bought 50 acres after we'd been going probably 5 or 6 years, not to build houses, but to prevent anybody being able to look in on the golf course. I didn't want someone building a house next door and destroying the ambience. And the ambience is what... The golfer doesn't just want good golf, he wants the ambience. And so all those golf courses built in the 80s, 90s, 2000s with brown housing, they hardly got ambience. They just don't. You want to be out there.
So the trend now is to build golf courses, not residential estates.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of golf courses being built like this. There are a few, but what are being done like this are good. There's Tara Eddy's just opened in New Zealand, north of Auckland, on the coast, maybe an hour and a half north of Auckland. Not easy to get to. Terrific golf course by Tom Tyke. Then you got one, the Cape Kidnappers, which is the most exotic location. It's pretty good, and again, it's hard to get to.
Cowrie Cliffs up the road.
Cowrie Cliffs, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the destination thing, and if you're a destination, you want the ambience. What sure as hell you don't want to have is 3-bedroom villas.
Yeah.
Lining the fairway.
You talk about destination golf. What creates a destination for a golfer? What are the key points?
Well, let's go back to basics. First of all, it's got to be a decent golf course. It has to be a decent golf course. It's got, and when I say decent, it's also quite a few have failed because they're too hard. Mm-hmm. Decent golf course, in my eyes, is one that it's a challenge, a decent challenge, a good challenge for the scratch marker, but the 20 marker, who is 90% of the golf market, wants to enjoy themselves. They don't want to hit their ball 1 yard off the fairway and lose it. And the fairway's 30 metres wide. Make the fairway, what the hell, make it 60 metres wide. For the scratch golfer, that doesn't make it easier for him, really, because he's hitting it down the middle anyway. But you're making it playable and enjoyable for the... And that's what golf needs to do. It needs to make... It shouldn't be a torture test, it should be pleasure. So the first thing is you've got to make a decent golf course. It does need to have the right ambience. And I mean, when you look around, you feel good. Destination golfer probably needs the sense that I'm venturing somewhere a bit remote. Let me give you an example. I mean, in New Zealand, Tara Eddy's Road, the Cape Kidnappers, the course built by Mike Kaiser up in Nova Scotia. And my wife and I visited that about a year ago, and that's, it's seriously remote. It makes Cape Wickham easy to get to. I mean, we landed at Halifax, and we drove for 3.5 hours to get there. There were 2 golf courses, 3.5 hours, it's a long drive for a golfer. Bandon Dunes in Oregon is not exactly easy to get to. Again, I rate it'd be harder than Wickham. Wickham at least only a 40-minute flight. And the thing about it is, but when you get to say Wickham, it's a good example of what just you feel seriously remote. You really do feel remote, and but you're not. But you're actually accessible. But you feel remote, and that's what matters.
Beautiful.
So that's today's trend. But how many can we have of these things? Well, I don't know. Maybe it'll stop in 10 years' time. I don't know. But then selectively there'll be more.
And have you got a favourite destination?
Personally?
Yeah. Something that draws you back each time?
The straight answer to that would be no, but do you have favourite memories? Like, I'll never forget going to Machrihanish in Scotland, which not that many people have been. It's down out of Glasgow, down a little peninsula, pretty hard. That's a hard one. That's a destination golf, hard to get to. And you stand on the first hole and you go, holy cow, we got this beach. And you can play it by the fairway or by the beach. If you hook onto the beach, it doesn't matter, you just play off it. It's fantastic. And at Wickham, we've got that on the 18th hole. It's a very rare thing. where if you slice off the tee on the 18th hole and you go onto the beach, you walk down, we've built some stairs down and you take your club down and you... I've seen guys make...
So the beach is the bunker?
The beach is the bunker. But the excitement, watch these guys, they all cheer if one of their mates is down there. Yes, mate! Plenty of people have hit the beach with their second shot. They hit the green with their second. And that, there's the fun. That's the joy, something different. And so I always remember Macrahanish, and that was in the 18th at Wickham are the only two I know that have this sort of big beach. It's not out of bounds. It's just part of the golf course. Fantastic.
All right. Final two questions, thanks. Your bucket list. What's left of golf courses that you haven't played?
Well, I have an anti-bucket list. An anti-bucket list, unlike everybody else, I've never wanted to play at Augusta. I've been there twice. I've never wanted to play it. And the only possibility of playing it that I would entertain would be playing it from the back tees and seeing if I could break 120. That's how hard that course is. I'd love to play it, if you like, by myself or just with a friend, and we play from the back tees where the pros play. I mean, that's the hardest course in some ways I've ever seen, in the sense the greens and around the bumps and the humps. I mean, it's a reverse bucket list. Could you break 120? Gee, I played... I've never played Pine Valley. I'd like to go there. Not too many that really jump out at them.
And the one course, if you were sentenced to one course for the rest of your life?
Oh, isn't that a nice question? And the honest answer, not the honest answer, the appropriate answer would be, Metropolitan, where I'm a member.
Yes.
Let's leave it there to say it safe. Flinders, yes. Flinders or Metropolitan, there we go.
Tremendous. Duncan, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Does that work for you?
Oh, that worked